just a couple of seconds here. Good to go.
Okay. The special meeting of the Town of Gulfstream Commission, hereby called to order. Please rise and salute the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Rita, would you call the roll?
Commissioner Gainer? Commissioner Gainer?
Here. I'm still here.
Commissioner Stanley?
Here.
Commissioner White?
Here.
Commissioner Orthwine?
Here.
Mayor Moore?
Here.
Let the record show Attorney Randolph and the town manager treasurer are both present.
Thank you. This special meeting is called to have a second reading of ordinance 17/1. Rita, would you please address that?
This is an ordinance of the Town Commission of the Town of Gulfstream, Palm Beach County, Florida, amending Chapter 66 zoning of the Town Code of Ordinances at Article 7, North Ocean Boulevard Overlay District, by deleting Section 66-327 signs in its entirety, further amending Article 8, Supplemental District Regulation, Division 7 signs, by deleting Section 66-446, 66-447, and 66-448, and replacing said sections with regulations which establish new time, place, and manner criteria governing signs in the town, and renumbering existing Section 66-449, undergrounding of utilities, as Section 66-450, providing for severability, providing for repeal of ordinances in conflict, providing for codification, providing an effective date, being presented for second reading this 26th day of January, 2015.
Thank you. Any comments or questions from commissioners? From the public? Mr. O'Hara?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. Thanks for the opportunity to speak on this ordinance. Ordinance 15-1 appears to contradict itself. Specifically, 66-447A4 states, and I'm abbreviating for clarity, side face includes any material used that differentiates the sign from the building upon which the sign is placed. However, Section 66-448G states, no sign may be placed upon any dwelling or other building associated with a dwelling. So for clarity, I just ask you, can you put a sign on a building or not?
I'm just looking again at what you've mentioned, Mr. O'Hara. 66-447-4,
A4,
A4, and then what was the other one?
448G. First time I read it.
I don't know if it's conflict, counsel?
I don't see anything inconsistent. You are allowed to put numerals. Numerals are defined differently, and sign does not include numerals, and you can certainly put numerals on it.
Okay, thank you. Anything else, Mr. O'Hara?
Oh, so numerals on the building, okay, but no other signs. Is that what I just heard? I'm sorry, I didn't hear very
It
well.
says sign shall not be, the ordinance says, and I think you pointed out, it says no sign may be attached to, affixed, or painted, or otherwise placed upon any dwelling or other building associated with a dwelling, including but not limited to sheds, carports, garages, and pool houses.
Okay. At the last commission meeting, I spoke regarding the first reading of this ordinance. I told you the language was confusing to me, and I asked for clarification so I could be sure to remain in compliance with the law. I remind the commission that the town's code provides for severe penalties to anyone found guilty of violating ordinance 15-1. These penalties are detailed throughout the code. 66(7)F, for instance, says any person violating any of the provisions hereof shall be subject to arrest and trial in a court of proper jurisdiction. 66(8)A says any person found guilty shall be upon conviction punished according to section 1-15. Section 115A says the violation of this code shall subject the offender upon conviction to $500 fine and 60 days in jail. And then 2-72B says a fine imposed pursuant to this section shall not exceed $250 per day for a first violation and shall not exceed $500 a day for a repeat violation. But then it goes on to say that every day you're in violation is a brand new violation. So it's substantially cumulative. A clear understanding of the proposed ordinance is essential for compliance and to avoid the penalties provided for by the town's code. For that purpose, I ask you for clarification on just a couple of items. 66446B1. All signs shall be erected, placed, established, created, or maintained in the town only in conformance with the standards, procedures, exemptions of this divisions. Signs that are not specifically permitted by this division are prohibited. I'm concerned about the word maintained. Does this section mean existing signs that do not conform to this ordinance cannot be maintained?
I think that's what it says.
No, it doesn't say, no, it doesn't say that.
So if a sign is not conforming, but was conforming prior to the ordinance, it would be allowed to remain.
I'm sorry?
If a sign is conforming now, but in 30 minutes becomes non-conforming, it will be allowed to remain.
I think we discussed that last
Well, didn't we go over this at the last meeting, because you raised these same questions, and yet you
Yes,
still
yes,
seem
I
to be
did,
bothered
sir.
by them?
I did, sir, and I asked questions, and I was told this is not a Q&A, but rather to make comments, and now I'm just asking
No, that
for
was a public
clarification.
comment period, I believe, but
Well, no, it's not
I
public
think we
comment.
addressed it, but for
We did. We
clarification,
did address it. This
what the
was
solicitor say again?
certain permanent signs that are already affixed would be grandfathered and not affected by this. It wouldn't apply. The temporary signs would not be grandfathered, but
Okay. Then my next question is, if a sign is not conforming today because it doesn't conform to the existing code, will that sign be allowed to remain? I'll give you an example. There's a beautiful sign at the Gulfstream School. It says celebrating 75 years of excellence. It's a wonderful message. However, it doesn't conform to the prior code because it was never permitted, and it doesn't conform to this code because it's oversized and over the amount of square foot area. So in a situation where something was not conforming before, but generally the policy's been to accept it, will the policy be to continue to accept it?
Yeah, I think you're making a number of assumptions there and positing that as a question that we're to give essentially an impromptu answer. And I don't think that's an appropriate question. If there is an issue under this ordinance, it will be evaluated and addressed, as we always do.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I previously asked if the proposed ordinance will regulate all expressive behavior typically exhibited by residents of the town. The definition of a sign in the proposed ordinance is so overly broad as to include just about any expression exhibited by a resident, including flags, holiday decorations, party balloons, signs on vehicles, even messages worn on t-shirts. To paraphrase the definition found in the ordinance, a sign is defined as anything created by man with the intended purpose of attracting attention to what it represents. We know some people build beautiful palatial designer homes with the intent of calling attention to their success and good taste. It can be argued that the definition found in this ordinance would prohibit such a home from being built over 4 feet high. I know that sounds ridiculous, but That's what the ordinance defines a sign as. The ordinance, let me read you the definition, in case you haven't already. 66447A1. Signs means, and I'll abbreviate again, sign means any wording or reading matter, illustration, logo, insignia, sculpture, molding, casting, object, bunting, symbol, letter, figure, character mark, plain point, design, poster, pictorial picture, stroke, stripe, line, trademark, and all other parts composing the same, together with the actual sign face, frame, background structure, or any other supporting of the same, which shall be so constructed, placed, attached, painted, erected, fastened, or manufactured in any manner whatsoever, so that the same shall be used for attracting the attention of the public to any place, subject, information, person, firm, corporation, public performance, article, machine, or merchandise. I'm asking you now, is any item that fits that description of a sign as defined in the proposed ordinance exempt from the enforcement of this ordinance?
I understand what you're trying to do, Mr. O'Hara, I do not.
I'll try not to
I
get
don't
arrested.
agree with your interpretation of that section of the ordinance. I don't see it the way you see it. I think we understand what a sign is. The sign is discussed and described in various other parts of this ordinance. And I think it's an attempt to properly regulate signage that is consistent with the law. And my understanding is that this was derived, at least in part, from other ordinances that municipalities that have attempted to do the same thing as us. So I just don't view it the way you're interpreting it.
Well, I appreciate that. I appreciate the effort you're going to, because I know this is very difficult. At least in my mind, it's difficult because, on the one hand, you have to be careful to protect people's rights. On the other hand, we want to maintain a beautiful Gulf Stream. And the aesthetics are very important, and legally, we're allowed to regulate aesthetics, that's fine. I just want to make sure what I do in the future doesn't get me arrested. I'm just looking for clarity. The way the ordinance is described is a sign ordinance. It would be more accurate to call it a speech ordinance, because we're really talking about people's self-expression. And unlike other town ordinances that regulate the color of your house, or whether or not your windows are the right shape, or what kind of plant you're allowed to grow, this ordinance attempts to regulate our First Amendment right to free expression.
You're wrong.
And well,
It's the opposite. It's content neutral. What it regulates is the sign, it does not regulate the speech. You have it exactly opposite.
well, I agree with you, sir. And the content, while that is a form of free expression, the very act of expressing yourself is described in the definition. I'm almost done.
Okay.
While the language of the proposed ordinance appears to be content neutral, as you just said, we all know that this ordinance will most likely only be enforced when the administration is unhappy with the sign's content. You know, and I've been all over the world. I'm happy and lucky that way. In Thailand, they have something called lèse-majesté. That's a law prohibiting you from criticizing the king. You criticize King Bhumibol, that's his name, and you're going to go to jail. In North Korea, you don't want to say anything about Kim Jong-un, you're going to go to jail. And in Cuba, people don't say Fidel. They go like this when they want to talk about him because they know somebody down the street is going to report him to the committee and they're going to go to jail. Countries throughout the world suppress freedom of expression. That's what's so unique about America and why I love it. We've got free speech protections. The United States Constitution guarantees the right to speak freely to all citizens and visitors. Guaranteed and enumerated rights of those, the First Amendment protecting free speech is the most important. I'm sure Mr. Randolph would agree with that. Free speech is essential, and I'm probably telling you things you already know. People have said this for hundreds of years, but free speech is essential to an informed citizenry, just like public records.
Mr.
You
O'Hara,
can't speak unless you're
you're
informed.
comparing the town of Gulfstream to North Korea and Cuba. That's essentially what you're doing, and it is absurd. It
Well,
is
we have a lot of
absurd.
similarities with those countries. We're all people, we all eat and sleep.
Would you
You're taking this and saying I'm comparing the entire town to the
finish
entire
your
country.
comments? I find it offensive, to be quite honest with you, insulting and offensive, to compare this town, the town in which you live, in which you enjoy the benefits of, to North Korea and Cuba. Absurd doesn't begin to describe. my view of that comment.
Thank you, sir. You offered your opinion, and I'm gonna skip the rest of this because you already know what I'm gonna say. I'm gonna cite Huey Long and all the rest of those great dictators in America. Not that we're like them at all, but I just want to remind you, the recent history of the town of Gulfstream is tainted with efforts to suppress expression. Town leaders are made uncomfortable by comments expressed at public meetings. So town reacts with a decorum policy, where remarks that might be impolite or insulting are subject to expulsion or arrest. A candidate places campaign signs throughout the town. Town doesn't like it. They end up piled up behind the maintenance shed while the other signs supporting other candidates remain. A citizen parks a truck with a sign controlled by this ordinance that you don't like, so you change the rules and you can't park in the front. So now the citizen parks in the back, and the town reacts by planting a hedge to block that view from the street. And I know you might have another reason for planting a hedge after the town's been around for 80 years and never needed a hedge there, but now it does. I'm sorry. Another citizen puts political cartoons in his front lawn, that's me. The town reacts by threatening him with a code enforcement hearing for having objects they are on his property. I put a boat with signs on it in navigable water, and the town reacts by suing me for trespass. These all have to do with a pattern of suppression of speech. Now, I'm summing up here, just a little bit left.
Please.
The town, the town has a history of selective enforcement of its ordinances, where it acts quickly to suppress speech it doesn't like. Past behavior by the town makes it clear that this ordinance, while appearing to be content neutral, will nevertheless be pulled out, dusted off, and thrown at any violator whose signed content does not meet the unwritten standards required by the town's approval. Any appearance of content neutrality of this proposed law will be usurped by the town's content enforcement. And that will violate the First Amendment just as surely as if you put duct tape over our mouths. Thanks for your patience.
Thank you, Mr. O'Hare. Any other comments? Mr. O'Boy?
Yes. I wasn't going to start off this way, but I am now going to start off this way. Whether, Mayor, you like Kim Jong-un, whatever his name is, or whoever else, Fidel Castro, it's unimportant. If Mr. O'Hare likes them, he has that right. And I don't think that you have the right to tell him who he should like.
Would you like to address the sign ordinance, Mr. O'Boy?
This is a sign ordinance, I'm addressing.
Yes, please.
When I first came here in early 2013, I had a red book. I don't know where I got this one, it's stamped, but it's the same book. And I held it up and I said to the then Mayor Mansour Glenn, we're either going to enforce it or we're going to throw it in the trash. And she said that we're going to enforce it. Now my question is, this sign ordinance, are we going to enforce it or are we going to throw it in the trash?
That's a rhetorical question in my mind. You may continue.
Okay, I understand it's a rhetorical question in your mind, but it's not in mine. May I have an answer?
We're passing an ordinance, of course. We're going to enforce ordinances as all our ordinances would be enforced.
As long as I know you're going to enforce it, that's fine. There's a truck out in the parking lot. It has a sign on the back. It's not very flattering to you, Mayor. Is that truck in violation now? Or is it going to be in violation immediately after you pass this ordinance, assuming that's what you're going to do? Or is there some waiting period?
Didn't we go over all of this at the commission meeting?
No.
I thought we did.
Well, you
Well,
thought
we
wrong.
specifically, I thought you or O'Hare raised the question of people with truck signs or UPS vehicles coming into town. That's not covered by this, that's not
Yeah, I didn't raise
this
it.
sign ordinance.
I didn't. So what you're saying is that sign is legal in the town, it's fine.
But the content of that sign is not affected whatsoever by this ordinance.
How about the sign itself?
And the sign itself that's on your vehicle, if you happen to be driving it through the town, I do not believe to be covered by this ordinance, as I read it. I could be wrong, I'll turn to
You're
counsel.
reading it
That's correct.
Yeah, and specifically, you were the one who said a sign driving through town, Bob Ganger is a creep.
Yeah,
And we all agreed that if I'm a creep, then that's perfectly okey-dokey. I mean, this kind of rhetorical questioning just amazes me.
yeah, I understand that, but let me help you out. The ordinance that you drew. 66-446B1. Signs that are not specifically permitted by the division are prohibited. Last sentence. Is the truck sign permitted?
Where are you?
So-
I'm sorry, what are you reading from?
I'm reading from Division 7 Signs, 66446, subsection B, subsection 1, the last sentence.
I'm sorry, what's your question? I mean, it
Says
says,
that signs that are not
doesn't it
specific.
say what it says?
Do you want to let me answer or no?
It seems to me you're again making a rhetorical question. Signs that are not specifically permitted by this division are prohibited. How much more clarity do you require?
I don't require any clarity, but my question is, the truck outside with the sign on it, show me where it's permitted. And if it's not permitted, your own words say it's prohibited.
I don't think that's true.
Okay?
Like
tell
Mr.
me how it's
O'Hare,
not true.
you're reading this ordinance incorrectly. I think you're reading between the lines would be a generous way of describing it.
Show me the ills of my way.
The ordinance speaks for itself. The ordinance does not prohibit what is on the back of your truck.
Signs that
The
are not,
ordinance in its entirety say that.
signs that are not specifically permitted by this division are prohibited. Is it specifically permitted by this division?
I don't believe it's specifically permitted because it doesn't identify that which is permitted. It
That's